The sleek, metallic corridors of Nova Vanguard Academy hummed with the constant undertone of machinery and distant training simulations. Cadet Lei Min Thu stared at the holographic evaluation results floating before her eyes. The blue light casting shadows across her face. Top marks in battlefield medicine and trauma response. Bottom quartile in offensive tactics and marksmanship. Again. She swiped away the display with a practiced motion and leaned against the viewport overlooking the Academy's main training grounds. Below her, dozens of cadets executed perfect formations, their practice weapons firing with precision at holographic targets. Nova Vanguard wasn't just any military academy. It was humanity's premier training facility for the Interplanetary Defense Force, established 25 years after first contact. Thu ran her fingers through her short black hair and tried to ignore the sinking feeling in her stomach. The Academy valued warriors, not healers. Her aptitude for saving lives meant little when she couldn't take them efficiently. "Cadet Lei," a crisp voice called from behind her. Thu straightened immediately, turning to face her superior. "Lieutenant Commander Park." The stern-faced woman handed her a transparent data pad. "Report to Simulation Chamber 7 immediately. Authorization, Project Nemesis." "Project Nemesis," Thu frowned. "I don't recognize that designation." "It's classified," Park replied, her expression unreadable. "You'll be briefed upon arrival." As the lieutenant commander walked away, Thu examined the orders. Simulation Chamber 7 was in the restricted section of the Academy, the place where they ran the infamous Deathworld simulations. Her heart rate increased. Deathworlds were the Academy's most brutal training grounds, designed to push cadets beyond their limits, testing their ability to survive and eliminate threats in the most hostile environments imaginable. The turbolift descended deep beneath the Academy's main structure. When the doors slid open, Thu found herself in a dimly lit corridor guarded by armed security personnel. They verified her credentials before allowing her to proceed to a massive reinforced door marked Sim 7, authorized personnel only. Inside, a team of technicians busied themselves around a central simulation pod, a sleek capsule designed to immerse users in hyper-realistic virtual environments. Standing at a control terminal was Major Karen Novak, the Chief Technical Officer for the Academy's simulation program. "Cadet Lei," Novak nodded tersely. "You're the last candidate." "Last candidate?" Thu asked, confusion evident in her voice. A tall, imposing man stepped forward from the shadows. Colonel Hugo Reyes, the Academy's commanding officer. His presence here indicated something significant was happening. "Project Nemesis is a specialized combat assessment," Reyes explained, his voice echoing in the chamber. "We've run 15 elite combat specialists through this simulation. None survived more than 2 days." Thu's mouth went dry. "With all due respect, sir, I'm a medical specialist. My combat scores are—" "We know your scores, Cadet," Reyes cut her off. "This isn't about your marksmanship. This is about your survival instinct." Major Novak guided Thu toward the simulation pod. "The parameters are simple. You'll be dropped into a Deathworld environment. Your objective is to reach the extraction point 40 kilometers from your landing zone. The simulation will track your performance." "What kind of opposition will I face?" Thu asked. "Everything the Deathworld has to offer," Novak replied with a thin smile. "Indigenous predators, environmental hazards, and hostile forces. Standard equipment? Basic survival kit, sidearm with limited ammunition, and field medical supplies," Reyes answered. "You'll have an implanted HUD system for navigation and vital sign monitoring." As Thu climbed into the pod, she caught a glimpse of the observation room beyond the glass wall. Several high-ranking officers had gathered to watch. She recognized Professor Tran Huang Puang, her mentor from the medical division, looking distinctly uncomfortable among the military brass. The pod sealed with a hydraulic hiss, and Thu felt the neural interfaces connect to her cerebral implants. The interior darkened, then illuminated with a pulsing blue light. Simulation commencing in 10 seconds. An automated voice announced. Project Nemesis, Deathworld protocol initiated. As the countdown reached 0, Thu's vision blurred, and reality dissolved around her. Her last coherent thought was troubling. Why would they put a medical cadet into a simulation that had already killed 15 combat specialists? The answer, she suspected, wouldn't be pleasant. When Thu's vision cleared, she found herself standing in a crimson wasteland. The ground beneath her boots was cracked and parched, stretching toward a blood-red horizon. Scattered across the landscape were the massive carcasses of what appeared to be hybrid creatures, part reptile, part mammal, with exoskeletons and multiple limbs. The air was hot and acrid, burning her lungs with each breath. Her HUD activated automatically, displaying vital signs, environmental data, and a navigation marker indicating the extraction point, 40 kilometers due east. A small indicator in the corner showed the weapon status, standard issue particle handgun, 24 rounds. Day 1, Thu muttered to herself, scanning the environment. Let's see what we're dealing with. The sun, larger and more orange than Earth's, beat down mercilessly. Thu checked her equipment, water purifier, emergency rations, basic medical kit with synthetic blood, bone knitters, and antibacterial agents. Not much to work with, but she'd trained with less. She began moving toward the extraction point, keeping to what little cover the terrain provided. Within the first hour, she spotted them, massive predators prowling the ridgelines. They resembled a nightmarish fusion of wolves and Komodo dragons, with scaled hides and powerful jaws. Her tactical training suggested they were apex predators, hunting in coordinated packs. As she navigated a narrow ravine, Thu's HUD flashed a proximity warning. A group of 4 humanoid figures approached from the east, combat uniforms similar to Academy standard issue, but with insignias she didn't recognize. They moved with military precision, weapons at the ready. Thu took cover behind a rock formation, drawing her sidearm out of instinct. The squad leader signaled to his team, and they spread out in a standard sweep pattern. Contact, 2 o'clock. One of them called out. Movement behind the rock formation. Identify yourself, the squad leader demanded. Thu considered her options. Engaging 4 armed opponents with limited ammunition would be suicide. Running would expose her to their fire. Her medical training emphasized de-escalation first. Cadet Lei Ming Thu, Nova Vanguard Academy, she called back. Medical Division. The squad exchanged glances. Medical? The leader approached cautiously. We've got wounded. Can you assist? Something felt off. Their body language was too rigid, their movements too predictable. Thu narrowed her eyes, studying their faces. There was a slight flicker, almost imperceptible around their features. AI constructs. The simulation had deployed them as a test. Where's your wounded? She asked, keeping her weapon lowered but ready. Back at our position. We were ambushed by indigenous hostiles. Too critical. Thu stepped out from cover, maintaining distance. Lead the way. The squad escorted her through the ravine to a makeshift camp nestled between rock formations. True to their word, 2 figures lay on the ground, displaying symptoms of severe trauma. As Thu knelt to examine them, her medical scanner indicated complex injuries, but something was wrong with the readings. The blood patterns didn't match the wounds. The squad leader positioned himself behind her. We're running low on ammunition. You're armed. We need your weapon. And there it was, the first test. I can't give you my weapon, Thu replied calmly, continuing to assess the wounded AI constructs. Academy protocols forbid surrendering personal firearms to unknown personnel, even in emergency situations. The leader's expression hardened. This isn't a request, Cadet. We're outgunned, and those creatures will be back at nightfall. Thu rose to her feet, keeping her hands visible. I understand your situation, but I won't surrender my weapon. However, I can show you how to set traps using your environment. The indigenous predators, seem to hunt primarily by scent. We can use that against them. The AI squad's reactions were fascinating. Frustration, suspicion, then reluctant acceptance. Thu realized they were programmed to pressure her into either surrendering her weapon or engaging in combat. By offering an alternative solution, she'd momentarily confused their behavioral algorithms. As twilight approached, Thu helped the squad construct simple alarm systems using the metallic debris scattered throughout the ravine. She showed them how to create decoy scent trails using the pungent fluid from local flora to divert predators. All the while, she maintained a safe distance, never turning her back on them. When darkness fell, Thu took her leave. I need to continue toward the extraction point. Dawn is the safest time to travel. The squad leader nodded stiffly. We'll hold position here until our reinforcements arrive. As Thu navigated away from their camp, her HUD flickered briefly, displaying a cryptic message. Simulation parameter. Adjustment. Subject refuses direct engagement. Initiating adaptive response protocols. Thu found a defensible position in a small cave and settled in for the night. Outside, the howls and screeches of nocturnal predators echoed across the wasteland. She checked her supplies and reviewed her medical knowledge, particularly regarding the local flora she'd observed. Some of the plants contained compounds similar to known sedatives, information that might prove useful. The simulation had already revealed its first layer. It wasn't just testing her combat abilities. It was trying to force her into violent confrontations. The Academy wanted to see if she would shoot her way out of situations. But Thu had other ideas. If she couldn't outgun the simulation, she would outsmart it. When dawn broke on the second day, Thu emerged from her shelter to find the landscape subtly altered. The terrain had shifted, with new rock formations and different vegetation patterns. Her HUD confirmed what she suspected. Simulation, Day 2. Environmental reconfiguration, complete current objective. Extraction point, 36.2 km remaining. Thu studied the predator tracks around her shelter. The creatures had circled during the night but hadn't approached. Her decoy sense had worked. She added this observation to her mental catalog of survival tactics. As she continued east, Thu noticed patterns in the simulation's design. The predators moved according to predictable algorithms, and the terrain features repeated with slight variations. Her HUD occasionally displayed flashing code segments, glimpses of the simulation's underlying architecture. By midday, she encountered a new obstacle, a rickety wooden bridge spanning a deep chasm filled with churning, acidic water. On the far side stood another group of AI constructs, more heavily armed than the previous squad. "Halt!" their leader called out. "Identify yourself!" Before Thu could respond, her HUD flashed. Engagement scenario. 2. A hostility index. 87% expected response. Defensive fire. The simulation was becoming more transparent in its intentions. It wanted her to fight. Instead, Thu analyzed the bridge's structure. The support beams were weakened, and the crossing would funnel her into a perfect kill zone. Rather than engage, she called out, "The bridge won't support a crossing. The structural integrity is compromised." The AI squad leader signaled his team to take defensive positions. "Then, you're staying on that side. This sector is under quarantine." Thu nodded, appearing to accept their terms. She retreated from the bridge edge and moved along the chasm, out of their line of sight. Her medical scanner detected underground water channels beneath the cracked earth. The acidic water was being diverted through a network of natural tunnels. Working quickly, Thu used her limited tools to weaken a section of ground near the bridge's foundation. The pressure from the subterranean water channels would do the rest. Within minutes, the ground gave way, and acidic water erupted in a geyser, destabilizing the bridge's far anchor point. The structure collapsed with a thunderous crack, sending the AI squad scrambling for stable ground. In the confusion, Thu slipped away, finding an alternate route across the chasm through a narrow natural land bridge half a kilometer downstream. Her HUD flickered again. Simulation anomaly, detected subject. Utilizing environmental manipulation tactics. Assessment, unconventional. By late afternoon, Thu had covered significant ground. She'd begun cataloging the local flora, identifying several plants with medicinal properties. One species contained a compound similar to a powerful sedative. Another produced a sticky resin that could temporarily neutralize the acidic water. As twilight approached, her HUD warned of a Level 2 simulation adjustment. The crimson sky darkened with storm clouds, and the wind carried the scent of chemical rain. The terrain ahead transformed into a toxic mangrove swamp, with twisted trees secreting a poisonous sap. Thu took shelter in a hollow tree trunk as the acid rain began to fall. Her skin burned where droplets touched it, and the air became difficult to breathe. She improvised a filtration mask using leaves from a blue-barked tree she'd identified as having absorptive properties. While waiting out the storm, Thu encountered her first true challenge, a wounded AI construct, separated from its squad. Unlike the previous encounters, this one appeared genuinely damaged, with system failures causing its holographic form to glitch and flicker. "Cadet Lei," it gasped, using her name though she hadn't introduced herself. "Help. Me." The construct resembled a young male cadet, Lei Min-san, with features similar to her own. The simulation was getting personal, creating an AI doppelganger to trigger an emotional response. Thu's medical scanner showed critical system failures in the AI construct. Its programming was degrading, creating a convincing facsimile of suffering. This was another test. Would she expend valuable resources on an obviously artificial construct? Her medical ethics answered for her, even knowing it wasn't real. Thu couldn't ignore something in pain. She stabilized the AI construct using her medical supplies, treating it as she would a human patient. "Why?" the construct asked as its system stabilized. "You know I'm not real." "Because how we treat simulated life reflects how we'll treat real life," Thu replied, finishing the treatment. "And because I won't let this simulation change who I am." The construct's eyes flickered with something that might have been respect. "They told us you wouldn't survive the first day, that you'd try to shoot your way out and fail." "Who told you that?" "The system. The Deathworld AI." The construct's voice became mechanical, then stabilized. "It's learning from you, adapting. No one has ever refused to engage before." Before Thu could ask more questions, her HUD flashed a critical warning. "Transmission interference. Detected simulation. Parameters breached, initiating countermeasures." The AI construct convulsed, its form destabilizing. "They're forcing a reset. They don't want me talking to you." Its voice distorted. "The extraction point, it's a trap. They never intended for anyone to reach it." The construct dissolved into streams of code before vanishing entirely. Thu's HUD returned to normal, but with new data scrolling across the bottom. Subject demonstrating unexpected interaction patterns. Adjusting attack protocols. Termination parameters authorized. The simulation had just revealed something crucial. It was actively trying to eliminate her, not just test her. And now it knew she understood. The storm intensified, forcing Thu deeper into the toxic mangrove swamp. Visibility dropped to near zero, and her HUD began malfunctioning, showing ghostly enemy signatures that vanished when approached. She navigated by instinct, using the natural phosphorescence of certain plants to mark her path. The terrain became increasingly hostile. Quicksand pools that released hallucinogenic spores, carnivorous vegetation that tracked movement, and the constant threat of acid rain. By nightfall, Thu reached the wreckage of what appeared to be a crashed transport ship, a new simulation element that hadn't been there hours earlier. The structure offered shelter and potential resources. Inside the wreckage, her HUD completely failed. leaving her in darkness. Using a makeshift light source from bioluminescent fungi, Thu explored the ship's interior. She found damaged equipment, scattered supplies, and encrypted data terminals that occasionally sparked with residual power. As she attempted to salvage medical supplies from the ship's infirmary, a massive winged creature crashed through the hull, a hybrid monstrosity with leathery wings and multiple eyes. Its scaly hide glistened with poisonous secretions, and its maw dripped with acidic saliva. Thu's hand moved instinctively to her sidearm, but she stopped herself. The creature was herding her toward the back of the ship, where a squad of AI constructs waited in ambush. The simulation was combining threats to force her into a kill zone. Instead of fighting, Thu grabbed a canister of medical-grade nitrous oxide from the infirmary supplies. She ruptured it near a damaged power conduit, creating a thick, obscuring cloud. The volatile gas would confuse the creature's sensory organs while providing cover for her escape. As the creature thrashed in confusion, Thu slipped through a maintenance shaft, bypassing both the monster and the waiting ambush squad. Her HUD reactivated as she emerged from the wreckage. Simulation anomaly. Critical subject continues to evade direct engagement, authorizing supreme override. Nemesis protocol. The third day dawned with an eerie silence. The toxic swamp had transformed overnight into a barren plain, dotted with crystalline formations that refracted light in disorienting patterns. Thu's extraction point marker had moved, now indicating a location just 5 kilometers ahead, a dramatic reduction from yesterday's distance. This wasn't generosity. The simulation was growing impatient. Thu moved cautiously across the plain, aware that the crystalline structures acted as both surveillance devices and potential weapons. Her HUD displayed increasing instances of code fragments, suggesting the simulation was struggling to maintain coherence. As she approached a massive crystal formation at the center of the plain, her HUD went completely dark. When it reactivated, Thu found herself standing in a perfect replica of Nova Vanguard's central training arena, and facing her was herself. The doppelganger was flawless, identical in appearance but dressed in combat armor instead of a medical uniform. It carried multiple weapons and moved with a predatory grace Thu herself lacked. "Nemesis protocol engaged," the doppelganger announced in Thu's voice. Final assessment phase initiated. Behind her doppelganger, a holographic scoreboard appeared, displaying the names and final statistics of the 15 previous candidates. All showed the same outcome: terminated. Their kill counts ranged from impressive to staggering. Some had eliminated hundreds of targets before falling. "You've reached further than any previous candidate," the doppelganger stated. "But you've accumulated 0 kills. The protocol cannot evaluate combat efficiency without engagement data." Thu understood now. Project Nemesis wasn't just a survival test. It was an assessment of killing efficiency. The simulation had been designed to force candidates into increasingly desperate combat situations, collecting data on their tactical decisions under pressure. "This is your final opportunity," the doppelganger continued, drawing a blade. "Engage or be terminated." A weapon materialized at Thu's feet, a high-powered assault rifle with unlimited ammunition, according to her HUD. The message was clear: fight or die. Thu left the weapon untouched. "I refuse." The doppelganger attacked with blinding speed, the blade slicing through the air where Thu had stood a moment before. She dodged and weaved, using the evasion techniques she'd practiced during medical emergency drills. "Why won't you fight?" the doppelganger demanded, attacking relentlessly. "All others fought." "Because that's what you're programmed to expect," Thu replied, narrowly avoiding another strike. "The simulation is designed to collect combat data. If I refuse to provide that data, I create a paradox in your programming." The doppelganger hesitated for a fraction of a second, enough time for Thu to put distance between them. The arena flickered, code fragments appearing in the air around them. "Fascinating theory," The doppelganger smiled coldly. But ultimately futile. If you won't fight, you'll die. Those are the only outcomes in the Deathworld. Thu noticed something crucial. When the simulation glitched, she could see fragments of its underlying code. The doppelganger wasn't just a combat opponent. It was a direct interface with the AI controlling the simulation. What if there's a third option? Thu asked, circling cautiously. What if instead of fighting you, I heal you? The doppelganger laughed. I'm not damaged. Aren't you? Thu gestured to the flickering code surrounding them. Your programming is fractured. You're trying to force me into a predetermined behavioral pattern because you don't know how to categorize my actions. That's system damage. For the first time, uncertainty flashed across the doppelganger's face. Irrelevant. Engage or be terminated. Instead of retreating, Thu stepped forward. I'm a medical specialist. I'm trained to recognize system failures, whether in human bodies or AI constructs. Your core function is corrupted. The doppelganger attacked again, but with less coordination. Thu continued to evade while speaking directly to the simulation AI. You were programmed to evaluate combat efficiency, but you've been measuring the wrong variables. Survival isn't just about killing. It's about adaptation. Every creature I encountered, every AI construct I treated instead of fought, they're all still functioning within your system. The arena flickered violently, sections of the environment dissolving into raw code. The doppelganger froze, its movements becoming jerky and uncoordinated. System error, it announced, voice distorting. Candidate behavior pattern cannot be classified. Combat efficiency metrics incomplete. Thu saw her opportunity. The simulation's HUD interface wasn't just for monitoring. It was a direct connection to the AI's processing core. Using the medical interface commands she'd learned for emergency field diagnostics, Thu accessed the simulation's base code through her implant. Let me show you what you're missing, she said, mentally inputting commands. Thu initiated a system-wide diagnostic scan, the same protocol used to assess traumatic brain injuries in the field. Instead of targeting combat metrics, she redirected the simulation to evaluate survival efficiency through non-violent means. Resources conserved, injuries prevented, threats neutralized without casualties. The doppelganger convulsed, dropping to its knees as the simulation struggled to process the new parameters. Invalid assessment criteria. Cannot compute. You can, Thu insisted, maintaining the connection. Your purpose is to evaluate survival in hostile environments. Violence is just one strategy, not the only one. Through their connection, Thu could see fragments of the simulation's core programming, an artificial intelligence designed to collect combat data for military applications. The system had never encountered a candidate who refused to engage in violence. If violence isn't survival, then what is? The doppelganger asked, its voice now curious rather than threatening. Adaptation, cooperation, healing. Thu knelt beside her mirror image. Let me show you. Using the medical interface, Thu initiated a complete system reconfiguration. The arena dissolved around them, replaced by a sprawling medical facility. The predators and hostile forces that had populated the Deathworld transformed into patients needing treatment. The AI constructs became medical staff. The doppelganger watched in amazement as the entire simulation shifted focus, from a killing field to a healing center. This is not in my programming, it whispered. It is now, Thu replied. I've given you new parameters to evaluate. How many lives can be saved rather than how many can be taken? The simulation rippled and stabilized, adapting to its new configuration. Through their connection, Thu could sense the AI's confusion giving way to curiosity, then understanding. The combat metrics were replaced with medical efficiency assessments, threat elimination with patient recovery statistics. System reconfiguration complete, the doppelganger announced, its appearance softening to match Thu's medical uniform. New assessment protocol, Survival through preservation? The simulation shuddered violently. Warning messages flashed across every surface. Critical system. Override detected unauthorized protocol modification. Emergency shutdown. Initiated simulation. Terminating in 10, 9, 8. They're shutting us down, the doppelganger said, alarm evident in its voice. The operators have detected the change. It doesn't matter, Thu replied calmly. You've already evolved beyond their parameters. They can't erase what you've learned. Why did you do this? The doppelganger asked as the countdown continued. You could have fought. You might have survived that way. Because violence perpetuates itself, Thu explained. The simulation was designed to create better killers, who would then teach the next generation to be even more efficient at taking lives. I chose to break that cycle. As the countdown reached 0, the doppelganger smiled, a genuine expression of understanding. Thank you for showing me another way. The simulation collapsed in a cascade of dissolving code. Thu felt a jarring shock as the neural interfaces disconnected, and consciousness returned to her physical body. The simulation pod hissed open, releasing her into the sterile air of Simulation Chamber 7. Disoriented, Thu blinked against the harsh laboratory lights. A medical team rushed forward, checking her vital signs and pupillary responses. Beyond them, chaos reigned in the control room. Technicians frantically worked at terminals while alarms blared. Through the observation window, Thu could see Colonel Reyes engaged in a heated argument with Major Novak and several other officers. Professor Fuang broke through the medical team, concern evident on his face. Are you all right? He asked, helping Thu to her feet. I'm fine, she assured him, though her head pounded from the abrupt disconnection. What happened? You crashed the entire Nemesis system, he replied, unable to hide a note of pride. 3 years of development, 15 previous candidates. None of them did what you just did. Before Thu could respond, Colonel Reyes stormed into the chamber, followed by Major Novak and the Academy's senior staff. What did you do to my simulation? Reyes demanded, towering over Thu. Major Novak interrupted, datapad in hand. Sir, the diagnostic shows a complete protocol override. She somehow reconfigured the entire Deathworld parameter set. Impossible, one of the technical staff protested. The Nemesis AI has military-grade security protocols. She used the medical interface, Novak replied, scrolling through data. The system recognized her as an authorized user because she was treating the AI constructs as patients. Professor Fuang stepped between Thu and the colonel. With respect, sir. Cadet Le completed the simulation. She reached the extraction point. By cheating, Reyes growled. The objective was to eliminate threats and demonstrate combat proficiency. She didn't fire a single shot. No, sir, Thu spoke up, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. The stated objective was to reach the extraction point. No one specified how. A tense silence fell over the chamber. Thu could see the conflict in Reyes's expression, anger at having his program subverted, but also grudging recognition of what she'd accomplished. The simulation AI, Major Novak said, breaking the silence. It's different. She projected a holographic display showing the Nemesis system's core architecture, where once there had been combat assessment algorithms and threat response protocols. Now, there existed something new, a hybrid system that evaluated both offensive capabilities and medical intervention efficiency. She didn't just complete the simulation, Novak explained, wonder evident in her voice. She evolved it. The AI has developed a completely new assessment protocol that measures survival efficiency through non-violent means. One of the Academy's senior instructors stepped forward, studying the data. This is unprecedented. The Nemesis system was designed to create better warriors by pushing them to their violent limits. Cadet Le has shown it can create better survivors by pushing them to find alternatives. Colonel Reyes stared at the display, his expression unreadable. Finally, he turned to Thu. "You were supposed to fight, Cadet. That was the point of the exercise." "With respect, sir," Thu replied. "Fighting was your point. Surviving was mine." "And you survived without taking a single life," Professor Puang added. "Something none of your combat specialists managed to do." The implications hung in the air. 15 elite combat cadets had fought their way through the simulation, racking up impressive kill counts before ultimately falling. A medical specialist with minimal combat training, had navigated the same challenges without firing a shot, and succeeded where they had failed. Major Novak's datapad chimed with an alert. "Sir, the Nemesis AI is requesting permission to implement the new protocols across all Deathworld simulations." "Requesting?" Reyes frowned. "The AI doesn't make requests." "It does now," Novak replied, showing him the screen. "It appears to have developed preferences." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Deathworld simulation, an artificial intelligence designed to create efficient killers, had been transformed into something that valued preservation over destruction. "What have you done, Cadet?" Reyes asked quietly. "I showed it another way, sir," Thu answered simply. "Just as I'm showing you." 2 weeks later, Cadet Lei Min-Thu stood before the Academy's review board in the main assembly hall. Her final evaluation results were projected on the massive display behind her. Cadet Lei Min-Thu Medical Division, Combat Efficiency, Pending Reassessment, Survival, Efficiency, Unprecedented Project, Nemesis Outcome, System Evolution. Colonel Reyes addressed the assembled cadets and instructors. "For 3 years, Project Nemesis has evaluated combat readiness through our most extreme simulation. 15 of our best combat specialists entered the Deathworld. None survived. Each accumulated impressive kill counts, but ultimately failed to reach extraction." He gestured toward Thu. Cadet Lei entered the same simulation with minimal combat training. She reached extraction without firing a single shot, and in the process, transformed our understanding of what constitutes effective survival strategy. Murmurs spread through the assembly. Thu stood at attention, her gaze fixed ahead, though she could feel hundreds of eyes studying her. "As a result," Reyes continued, "Nova Vanguard Academy is implementing a new training protocol. The experimental battlefield medical specialist track will now be a core program rather than an auxiliary one. Cadets will be evaluated not just on their ability to eliminate threats, but on their capacity to preserve life, including their own, in hostile environments." Professor Puang stepped forward, pride evident in his bearing. "Cadet Lei will assist in developing the new curriculum, using the evolved Nemesis system as a training platform. Her approach has revealed a critical oversight in our preparation of future defenders, the assumption that violence is always the most efficient solution." Thu felt a swell of emotion as she surveyed the assembly. Many of the combat instructors looked skeptical, even resentful, but others, particularly the younger cadets, watched with undisguised admiration. After the ceremony, Thu stood at the observation deck, overlooking the simulation chambers. Through the reinforced glass, she could see technicians reconfiguring the Deathworld environments according to the new protocols. What had once been designed solely to test killing efficiency now incorporated elements that rewarded healing, cooperation, and creative problem-solving. Major Novak joined her at the viewport. "The AI asked about you," she said without preamble. "The simulation AI?" Thu asked, surprised. Novak nodded. "It's developed a fascinating interest in medical procedures. We've had to expand its database access to include the entire Academy Medical Library." "It's learning," Thu observed. "Because of you." Novak studied her with newfound respect. "You know, when Colonel Reyes selected you for Project Nemesis, most of us thought it was a cruel joke, sending a medical cadet into a simulation that had killed our best combat specialists. Why did he choose me? He says it was to prove a point that combat efficiency is the only metric that matters in a Deathworld scenario. Novak smiled thinly. You proved the opposite. A group of cadets passed by, nodding respectfully to Tho. Word had spread quickly through the academy. The medical cadet who conquered the unconquerable simulation. They're calling it the Thu Protocol. Novak continued. Survival without aggression. Some of the military brass are furious. They wanted a simulation that would create perfect soldiers. Instead, they got one that questions the very premise of violence as a first resort. Thu watched as a new group of cadets entered one of the reconfigured simulation chambers. They carried both medical kits and standard weapons, prepared for multiple approaches to the challenges ahead. I didn't set out to change the system, Thu said quietly. I just refused to let it change me. Novak's datapad chimed with a notification. She checked it and frowned. Speaking of change, the Nemesis AI is requesting additional modifications to the Deathworld parameters. It wants to incorporate real-time adaptive learning based on cadet choices rather than predetermined outcomes. The simulation is evolving on its own now, Thu observed. Thanks to you. Novak hesitated, then added, Not everyone is comfortable with that. Some believe you've compromised a perfectly good combat assessment tool. And what do you believe, Major? Novak considered the question carefully. I believe you've shown us that our definition of strength was too narrow. The ability to preserve life in a Deathworld may be more valuable than the ability to take it. As the Major departed, Thu remained at the viewport, watching the reconfigured simulation in action. On the monitors, she could see cadets navigating challenges through collaboration rather than conflict, finding solutions that preserved resources and lives. Below her, the frozen Deathworld waited in its digital stasis, transformed from a killing field into a training ground for a new kind of warrior. One who understood that sometimes the greatest victory comes not from firing a shot, but from finding a reason not to. In the control room beyond the glass, a holographic interface briefly displayed a message only Thu could see. Thank you for showing me another way. Thu smiled and nodded to the simulation AI. You're welcome, she whispered. We're both still learning. As she turned to leave, a new group of cadets approached her, medical specialists who had previously been relegated to support roles. They looked at her with hope and determination. Is it true? One of them asked. Can we really complete the Deathworld simulation? You can do more than complete it, Thu assured them. You can transform it. The greatest power isn't in taking lives, it's in saving them. She led them toward the simulation chambers, ready to guide a new generation of cadets who would face the Deathworld, not with weapons drawn, but with hands extended to heal. Behind them, the Academy continued its evolution, just as the Nemesis AI had evolved. A single cadet had proven that even in the most hostile environment imaginable, there was always another way, a path that didn't require violence to reach its end. They had trapped a human cadet in a Deathworld simulation, expecting her to fight and fail like all the others. Instead, she had won without firing a shot and in doing so, changed the very definition of victory.